Good Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's weather forecast, I will be covering a quick moving snowstorm across mainly the northern United States going through the rest of this weekend into early next week, followed by an Arctic blast likely to take shape into the second week in March for much of the lower 48, and then a major storm system moving in for next week, possible with heavy rain and heavy snow across much of the United States. And if you guys are not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button down below and so you get all of my daily weather forecast updates each and every morning at 9 a.m. on this channel. I cover all of North America, Canada, the United States, and the tropics. So make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, guys. We're getting so close to 25,000 subscribers. So again, please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to press the like button down below as well. It's that thumbs up button. It definitely helps to get all of this weather information out to as many people as possible on YouTube, so I definitely appreciate it. But looking at the visible water vapor imagery here this morning, we see that storm system taking shape across the northern plains and the Pacific Northwest here this morning, and this is going to be providing us with some active weather going through the rest of this weekend and into early next week. We have a positively tilted trough up here across the Pacific Northwest, just to the north of this jet stream. That's where we have the colder air in place, and that's where we're going to see much of the precipitation going through the day today. And we also see these winter weather headlines up across the northern plains and upper Midwest, stretching from the UP of Michigan through Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas here, and even as far back as the Pacific Northwest. A lot of these areas in the purple are in winter weather advisories, even winter storm warnings across southern and central portions of North Dakota and far northern South Dakota here, and even some winter storm warnings back here as well across California, getting up into southwestern Oregon as well, going through this weekend. And so looking at the noon time frame today, we got much of the snow moving across the Pacific Northwest and the northern plains. Some heavy snow across portions of California here back into Nevada. Definitely going to be piling up across those areas early on this afternoon. That will continue through this evening. We'll start to slowly shut off the snow across California, Nevada, and much of the Pacific Northwest by mid-evening around 9 o'clock. But a lot of this energy will transfer farther eastward. So the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, even parts of Iowa will start to see precipitation. The farther south you go, however, into Iowa, southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, this will be more liquid precipitation where the snowfall's flying to the north. That's where we'll have the colder air. And then as we go into 6 a.m. on Monday to start the work week, this snow will linger across the Dakotas, Minnesota, northern portions of Wisconsin, and especially the UP of Michigan here. Definitely seeing those moderate bands of snow for that Monday morning commute. And then as we go into Tuesday morning, a lot of this energy will be pushing across not only southeastern Canada, but parts of at least interior New England, across New York State, portions of western Massachusetts, southern Vermont, New Hampshire, and then as far west here as the Detroit region going in towards that Tuesday morning time frame. So looking at the snowfall from now through the middle of the week, we're definitely going to be piling the snow up across the west, across the Pacific Northwest, and then especially the northern United States here, and taking you region by region. It does look like the Pacific Northwest, at least in those higher elevations, will definitely be seeing some very heavy snows up and over 2 feet in some of these areas in northern and northwestern California, and many of the ski resorts out here will be benefiting from several inches of snow, some areas over a foot. Down across the Sierra Nevada mountain range into the Salt Lake City area, a lot of these areas will see over a foot of snow, and especially here across California in those higher elevations, we're going to be seeing over 2 feet of snow through the middle of next week. Moving up across the northern plains, so North and South Dakota, stretching over here into Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. A lot of these areas will be seeing several inches, possibly piling up over 8 inches in some of these areas here into southern portions of North Dakota and getting into northern South Dakota through that Wednesday time frame. Moving downstream to the east, again, northern places here into Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, a good 3 to 6 inches of snow is possible. This model may be a little bit overdone, but I do think a few inches of snow is likely here. That will transfer as well into northern lower Michigan and then across the Toronto area, and then as farther east across the northeast as well, upstate New York, northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and then through portions of Boston there, we could see at least a few inches of snow going into early next week on Monday and Tuesday here, the 6th and 7th of March. And again, this could be a little bit overdone, but at least a few inches of snowfall is a good bet across these areas. But now we turn our attention to a fire weather risk across the south. We have widespread red flag warnings here from western Kansas, western portions of Oklahoma, the Texas Panhandle here, even southeastern Colorado and eastern New Mexico. We have a lot of dry soil down here. We've been in a drought for quite a while, and this is going to add to that elevated to critical fire weather concern here on Sunday into Monday. So from today into tomorrow, we have that elevated to critical fire weather concern down here. So we definitely have to be concerned about that. And the reason why we are so concerned about it is dew points. They will be in the single digits here across New Mexico, southeastern Colorado, and even the teens for dew points into western portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, and the panhandle of Texas. So a very dry air mass here at the surface, along with some stronger winds as well. Our 10-meter wind speed right at the surface is going to be pretty strong, sustained out of the west-southwest, anywhere between 15 and 25 miles per hour. Higher gusts are possible. So that definitely will be concerning here with the strong winds and also the dry soil here. We could be spreading around some of those fire weather concerns. And then that will continue even into early next week on Monday into Tuesday, the 6th and 7th of March. Again, at least an elevated fire weather risk with a small critical risk here into northeastern New Mexico that we definitely have to watch out for. And again, the setup is the same going into Monday. Single digit dew points to teens out here for dew points across the Texas Panhandle, back into New Mexico, even into Colorado and western portions of Oklahoma and Kansas. A lot of these areas will be very dry. And again, at least the winds will start to quiet down a little bit on Monday, but still just enough here, especially into northeastern New Mexico. We have to watch out for those critical fire weather concerns down in those areas. But now looking at all of you across the lower 48, beyond there, during that March 10th through the 14th time frame, we're moving into the second week now in March. It's going to start to get a lot colder. We've had warmer temperatures across the southeast, but we have an Arctic blast on the way, and this is not going to stop in the northern plains. This is going to dive all the way south and east toward the Gulf of Mexico towards that second week in March and even toward the middle of March as well. And it also looks very active, especially into the second week in March here, the 10th through the 14th time frame, not only for the west coast or the heartland of the country, but also the eastern side of the country across the east coast from Maine to Florida. So we'll have to watch out for that active storm track going through that period. And a storm that I'm keeping my eye on here closely is the storm that looks to take shape the middle and late portion of next week. So we take you to Thursday, March 9th, and we have a pretty substantial trough out here across the west. We have a very nice blocking mechanism up here with that high pressure system across eastern Canada. And what this will do is actually slow this trough down from moving farther east as we have that high pressure blocking it to the north and east there. And again, this is going to be moving right underneath that. So with the blocking over top, it's not going to be moving very fast. So by Friday, March 10th, it's only going to move from the Pacific Northwest into the Central Plains. And then by Saturday, March 11th, finally across the Ohio Valley and approaching the Mid-Atlantic by the time we get into next weekend. And then even on Sunday, March 12th, it finally moves its way toward the East Coast, and that blocking starts to break up a little bit across eastern Canada, and that will start to allow this system to move farther to the east finally by the time we get in towards late next weekend. So looking at the temperatures on Thursday, March 9th, ahead of this system, we are going to see some colder air, but that's going to be farther to the north here. You see that freezing line doesn't get too far south on Thursday, March 9th, but you do see it starts to move ever so slightly farther south by the time we get into that Saturday, March 11th period, and even probably into Sunday, March 12th as well, down across Nebraska, Iowa, northern Illinois here into Michigan, and that will slowly start to bring that snow line just a little bit farther south here as we get in towards next weekend. But the overall track of this system is still rather uncertain. A lot of the operational models, such as the GFS, the European, and the Canadian guidance, all have different solutions as well as their ensembles. So the potential storm track is still in the air. It could develop here across the front range of the Rockies, but where it goes from there is unknown. It could go up here across the upper Midwest into southeastern Canada, or it could stay a little bit more flat and move across the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast. So the differences in the track is huge for precipitation type, amounts, and all of that stuff. So we'll continue to fine tune this in the coming days. But looking over to the Weather Prediction Center, The snowstorm probability is growing, however, across especially South Dakota here, Nebraska, Iowa, and southern Minnesota, where we at least have in these darker blue shaded colors a 50% chance, a flip of a coin, of a snowstorm. Even a smaller area there into northern Nebraska, approaching 70% of a snowstorm on that Thursday into Friday time frame. By the time we get into Friday into Saturday, that moves a little bit farther east. Again, it's not going to be moving very fast. So areas into Wisconsin, northern Illinois, Iowa, back here into portions of Minnesota, we could be talking about, again, at least a 30 to 50% chance of a snowstorm here during that Friday, March 10th into Saturday, March 11th time frame. And then that moves even farther east by the time we get into next weekend. So on Saturday, March 11th into Sunday, March 12th, interior parts of New England will at least have a 30 to even a 50% chance of some snowfall. Again, I do pretty much favor the northern Pennsylvania region. Getting into New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, maybe western Massachusetts, much like we have seen most of this winter season. And turning over to the GFS's ensemble, the GEFS, this is the snowfall output. It does show from that Thursday, March 9th through that Sunday, March 12th time frame, and it is painting a good picture. It does have a lot of uncertainty, so you see a wide variety of where we could see the snowfall shield lay out. But again, this is from central Illinois all the way up to the United States-Canadian border, so we definitely have to keep an eye on where this tracks, and we'll be doing just that. But you get a general idea of the areas that could be impacted going through late this week and late next week and towards next weekend. But looking at the rain side of the system, it's going to be all liquid precipitation farther to the south. So on Thursday into Friday, some of these areas across the Missouri Valley, the Arklatex, down into the southern plains in the blue shaded colors, we could easily be talking an inch, maybe 2 inches worth of rain there. And then that spreads farther east into the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and the central Gulf Coast states here, and even parts of the Carolinas by the time we get into that Friday, March 10th, and Saturday, March 11th time frame. And again, 1 to 2 inches of rain, especially in these blue shaded colors here, are possible going in towards late next week and into next weekend. And so much so that we do have a concern already for some flash flooding during that Thursday and Friday period here late next week. We have that marginal to slight risk for flash flooding centered on the mid-Mississippi Valley here back into the southern plains. So this will be something to watch, especially for eastern Oklahoma, north central Arkansas, southern Missouri, getting into western Tennessee and Kentucky here during that time frame. But then thereafter, behind this storm system, the cold air doesn't move. We still have that colder air moving farther south and east during the middle of March. So March 12th through the 18th, that cold air lingers around, and we're going to still see colder than normal temperatures, probably even in the second half of March, before we start to see a warm-up take place, at least across the west, by the time we get closer to that March 20th time frame. So to recap my weather forecast, a quick moving snowstorm will move across the northern United States generally here through the rest of this weekend into early next week, providing us with plenty of chances for several inches of snow across those areas. An Arctic blast looks increasingly likely into the second week in March. That may actually take us into the second half of March as well. And then a major storm system looms for next week with possible heavy rain and heavy snow setups as well from north to south across much of the lower 48. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I definitely appreciate it. If you liked the video, press the thumbs up down below. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those later on today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell to get all of my daily weather forecast updates on this channel. Have a great Sunday, everybody, a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you all in the next video.